Beneath an almond tree, a girl cooked with empty pockets but a full heart. Every morning, she fed a crippled beggar no one else would touch. She didn't know the man in rags was watching her, testing her, hiding a billionaire secret beneath the dust. Then one morning, he vanished. 4 days later, she received a letter and signed sealed with red wax. That journey would change her life and shake the city. Because when you feed kindness to the forgotten, sometimes the whole world feeds you back. What happened next? Check full story on my page below.
The cool dawn breeze swept through Pepper Tree Street, brushing dust from the sleeping city and slipping between tiny wooden stalls lined up like teeth. At the very center of that long row stood a shaky blue shack. That shack was Esther's food stall. It was built from leftover planks, wobbly nails, and faith. Each board leaned a different way, but together they formed a square that smelled of pepper, smoke, and courage. Whenever sunlight first touched its rusty tin roof, people knew breakfast was almost ready. Inside, Esther was already awake. She had risen before the earliest rooster crowed, rolling off the thin foam mattress on the floor of her rented one-room house nearby. No alarm clock called her. Hunger did. Hope did. So did fear of the landlord, who often banged on doors before sunrise, shouting about late rent. Esther washed her face with water from a yellow jerry can. She tied a faded green wrapper over her old blue dress, both washed so often they were almost the same pale color, and slipped cracked slippers on her feet. Then she headed out, balancing a heavy black pot on her head and a sack of onions on her arm. Her steps were quick and light. The city was still half asleep, but she was already racing the clock in her mind. Lagos, that restless giant, yawned around her. Staff buses rumbled past like hungry dragons. Hawkers unrolled plastic tables. Conductors hollered, Ojalegba, CMS, Ikeja. Even the gutter water seemed to wake and wiggle. But above the muddy smells of diesel and wet earth rose Esther's special scent, fresh tomato stew bubbling with thyme. Neighbors called it morning sunshine in a spoon. Soon the charcoal stove beneath her shack glowed red. Fire licked the pot like a cat licking milk. Esther stirred rice porridge with a wooden paddle almost as tall as she was. Each circle released steam that curled into tiny ghosts and vanished. She tasted, nodded, added salt. She set yams to boil in a second pot, beans in a third. With every stir she whispered a small prayer, let today be kind. Let mouths be fed. Let me earn enough for rice, rent, and maybe new slippers. That last wish always felt too big, so she spoke at the softest, as if the wind might laugh. People began to gather. A kiki rider with tired eyes. A woman in market cloth, baby tied to her back. 3 schoolboys who should have been in class but carried shining shoe brushes instead, hoping to shine boots for spare coins. She greeted them all the same way. Good morning, my brother. Good morning, my sister. Her smile was bright but gentle, as though she shared a secret with each person. Coins clinked. Plates clicked. Soon the bench in front of her stall filled with chewing mouths, and the air filled with happy hums. Then came the part of the morning everyone watched for, though many pretended not to. A squeak of wheels, a slow scrape, and a soft cough announced him, Papa J. He was the quiet beggar who sat in an old wheelchair with one loose wheel that whined at every turn. His shirt was always 2 sizes too big, the collar button missing, sleeves hiding thin arms. His head carried a graying cap pulled low, shadowing his eyes. People said he was crippled from the waist down. Some said polio, others said a building collapse. No one knew the truth, and most did not care. They cared only that he stretched a rusted plate for coins and spoke almost no words. Many passed him by. Some mocked him. A few tossed small change, but looked away ashamed. Esther never looked away. The moment she heard that squeak-scrape cough outside her shack, her face lit up. She hurried forward, wiped the wooden bench beside her with a corner of her wrapper, and called, Papa J, come sit under the tree. The wind is gentle today. She helped roll his chair closer, placed a flat stone under the bad wheel, and ladled a steaming scoop of yam porridge into a metal bowl. She added fried plantains, golden brown, sweet as morning songs. Then, without asking him to pay, she set the bowl on a tiny crate before him, like a tiny altar of kindness. He lifted his eyes, for they were kind too though hidden, and whispered, "Thank you, Esther." His voice was rough, but there was softness beneath the gravel. Esther only smiled wider and said, "Eat well, Papa. The day is long." That small ritual happened every morning. Months flowed by like muddy rainwater, carrying troubles, taxis, and tired songs, but the ritual stayed. Esther fed Papa J first, even when she had only one plate left, even when she herself had not tasted breakfast. Some neighbors shook their heads. "This girl is too soft," the pepper seller told anyone who would listen. "She will cook herself into debt feeding charity cases." The Okada rider laughed. Kindness cannot buy generator fuel. But others watched quietly, strangely moved, though they did not show it. A shy banker from the tall glass office across the street began to tip Esther double. A bike courier, who had once stolen a spoon, returned it cleaned and wrapped in tissue. Kindness sprouted tiny roots. Yet Esther's private life remained hard. After the breakfast rush, she counted her earnings, crumpled Naira notes and sweaty coins. She hid half behind the salt bag, the rest behind her smile. Each night she closed her stall and walked home through streets thick with horns and worry. Her home was a single windowless room in a compound filled with many doors, many smells, many arguments. The ceiling leaked in heavy rains. The landlord, Mr. Jonah, tall and thin like a broomstick, loved to remind tenants of their debts. He would tap on Esther's door with the flat of his shoe and say in his sing-song voice, "Sweet daughter, your rent is as late as a lazy goat." "Tomorrow, tomorrow." She bowed, saying, "I'll find it, sir." And she tried. But after food costs, charcoal, and her silent charity, little remained. Still she woke early again, because the city did not pause for sorrow, and hunger never sleeps. One Thursday morning, two things happened that would change everything, though Esther did not know it yet. The first was a deep scratch in the sky. Dark clouds slid over the rising sun, painting streets gray. The air smelled of coming rain and raw dust. Lagosians hurried, heads bent, voices tense. The second was the arrival of a man in a leather jacket no one had seen before, standing by the bus stop opposite Esther's stall. He carried a notebook and watched the scene, especially Esther and Papa J. He scribbled something whenever Esther laughed or Papa J lifted a spoon. No one spoke to him, he spoke to no one. He simply watched. The day unfolded with small dramas. A driver shouted at a traffic warden. A child spilled her plate and cried. Esther lost a handful of rice when a gust of wind knocked over a bowl. Yet through each tiny storm she kept moving, adjusting her head tie, humming gospel choruses. But her eyes drifted to the stranger, uneasy. Why write notes about a poor food seller and a beggar? Was he a health inspector? A journalist? Esther shrugged the thought away and focused on customers. Papa J stayed later than usual, silent, eyes half closed. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavy drops like thrown pebbles. Umbrellas popped open like flowers. Esther hurried to pull a nylon sheet over her stall, but water still dripped through cracks. She pushed Papa J's chair deeper under the almond tree to keep him dry and gave him a plastic bag to cover his legs. She laughed. "At least you stay cool, Papa." He chuckled for the first time in weeks, a low, surprising sound. "Ha ha ha." Even the stranger glanced up, tilting his head. When afternoon came, rain eased. Streets steamed. Esther packed her empty pots, wiped benches, and counted remaining coins. Far less than she hoped. The landlord's deadline was tomorrow. Her stomach twitched. She tied her wrapper tighter, closed the stall, and prepared to roll Papa J toward the abandoned storehouse where he slept nights. But Papa J lifted a hand. "No, Esther," he said softly. "I will go myself. Rest today." She hesitated. He rarely spoke more than 2 words. His eyes held hers for a long moment, almost glowing beneath the cap. Something in them, a sadness, a secret? She swallowed and nodded. "If you're sure," she murmured. As she turned to leave, the stranger stepped from the bus stop and tipped his leather cap at her. "Good day." His accent was crisp, too crisp for the dusty street. Esther tried to smile, but worry tightened her face. He asked politely, "Your food smelled wonderful. May I buy tomorrow?" She exhaled. "Yes, sir. I open by 6. He thanked her and walked away toward the main road, notebook under his arm. She watched until he disappeared behind honking buses. That night Esther could not sleep. Rain drummed on the tin roof of her room. Thunder rolled like drums in a masquerade parade. By candlelight, she counted her hidden money, not enough. She wrote a list: charcoal, rice, palm oil, rent. She scratched the last line, rent, then wrote hope beside it. At last she blew the candle out, lay on the mattress, and stared at the dark. Water dripped into a plastic bowl nearby. Plip, plop, plip. Morning came quick. Esther rose, shoulders heavy but eyes bright. She whispered her daily prayer, then hurried through puddles to her stall. She lit the charcoal, chopped onions, and set rice water to boil. The street smelled clean after the storm. Metal roofs glittered. She looked for the stranger, but he was nowhere. She also looked for Papa J, but the squeak-scrape-cough did not come. A frown creased her brow. Maybe the rain kept him away, she thought. Mid-morning passed. The bench beside the almond tree stayed empty. Lunch hour arrived. Students swarmed her stall, laughing. Office clerks grabbed takeaway bowls. The stranger finally appeared, bought 2 plates, paid double, and left again, but Papa J never came. Esther's skin prickled with uneasy pins. When evening shadows stretched long, she took a bowl of yam porridge, covered it with foil, and carried it down the cracked sidewalk to the abandoned storehouse. She pushed the heavy wooden door. It groaned, opening into darkness. "Papa J!" she called. Only echoes answered. She stepped inside, heart thumping. Dust floated like lost fireflies and faint sunbeams through holes in the ceiling. There was no sign of Papa J. His cardboard mat lay folded. The corner where he kept a plastic water jug was empty. Even the rat that often darted across the floor was gone. Esther's chest tightened. She returned outside. She asked 3 street kids if they had seen the beggar. They shook their heads. She asked the Kiki rider. He scratched his beard. "Try the church gate," he said. She rushed there. The security guard shrugged. She asked the pepper seller. The woman just clicked her tongue. Maybe he rolled away to die quietly. Esther felt hot tears sting. She blinked them back. He cannot vanish like wet chalk, she thought. That night she skipped dinner. She paced her room, thinking. She remembered the cap-shadowed eyes, the rare chuckle, the whispery thank you. She recalled how his hands trembled when she gave him extra plantains. Where is he? She told herself he would show tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and the bench was empty again. 3 days passed. Esther searched alleyways, bus parks, under bridges. She asked at the small clinic near the post office. No crippled beggar had been admitted. She placed a note on the church notice board. Seeking Papa J, wheelchair. Kind eyes. Please come back, Esther. When she returned after lunch, the note was gone. Only a pin remained. Her heart fell deeper. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, as she wiped sweat from her brow and closed her stall early, the stranger in the leather jacket approached. This time he held no notebook. Instead, he carried a plain, white envelope sealed with red wax. He spoke softly. "Are you Esther?" She nodded, wary. He glanced around, lowered his voice, and said, "A friend asked me to give you this. You must read it alone." He pressed the envelope into her flour-dusted fingers, tipped his cap, and left before she could ask more. She stared at the envelope. There was no name, no stamp, only her own name, Esther, written in neat blue ink. Her thumb traced the wax seal, a tiny imprint of a bird in flight. She felt the weight of thick paper inside. A strange tremor ran through her. The alley around her seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere far off, a horn honked like a warning. She slid the envelope into her dress pocket and hurried home. In her room, she locked the door, lit the candle, and sat on the mattress. Her hands shook as she broke the wax. Inside was a single folded sheet, thick and creamy, smelling faintly of perfume. She unfolded it. "Dear Esther, I hope you have not worried too much. Your kindness has been seen, even when the world looked away. If you wish to understand more, come to Greenhill Hotel tomorrow at noon. Ask for room 604. Tell no one. A friend." The candle flickered. Shadows danced like nervous spirits. Esther read the words again, each sentence heavier than the last. Greenhill Hotel was on the other side of Lagos Island, far from dusty Peppertree Street, a place where wealthy travelers lodged. Why there? Who was a friend? Was this about Papa J? Fear and hope tangled in her stomach like fighting cats. She thought of dangers, kidnappers, tricksters, human part sellers. But she also thought of Papa J alone, maybe hurt, maybe calling her silently. She folded the letter, tucked it in her pillowcase, and knelt to pray. Her voice shook. Lord, guide my steps. If this is evil, stop me. If this is good, keep me brave. After amen, she sat back on her heels and stared at the leaking ceiling. Rain had stopped. A single drop formed, hung, and fell plop. Sleep came late, filled with odd dreams. A wheel spinning through golden halls, a bird with red wings tapping her shoulder, a pot that never emptied. She woke before dawn, heart racing. She dressed carefully, cleaned the green wrapper, mended a tear in her blue dress, scrubbed her slippers. She hid her stall key under a loose brick by the almond tree and taped a note on the shack door. Family emergency. Back soon. Then she boarded a crowded Malu bus heading across the third mainland bridge. Buses roared like angry lions, horns blasted, sellers squeezed through all shouting, pure water. Gala! Esther clutched her small handbag and the letter inside, feeling each mile stretch like gum. Lagos Lagoon shone silver under the rising sun. Tall glass towers glimmered. Esther pressed her forehead to the dusty window and whispered, Papa J, I'm coming. Esther's slippers touched down on shiny white tiles. She looked up. The gates of Green Hill Hotel stood like the doors to a royal palace, tall, spotless, and too grand to touch. Shiny cars lined the front like sleeping lions. 2 men in black suits stood by the entrance, arms folded, not smiling. They looked at her, then at her slippers, her wrapper, her bag, and then looked away, silent. Her heart beat fast. She almost turned back. She wasn't meant to be here. This place was for rich people, people with perfume and passports, not pepper stains and pockets with holes. But then she remembered the letter. The words burned quietly in her head. Your kindness has been seen. Come to room 604. So she stepped forward. One of the guards opened the glass door without a word. Inside, cold air hit her face, fresh and sharp like mint. The lobby was a soft gold color. Light came from everywhere. The chairs were deep and soft. The air smelled like lemon and roses. Even the silence here felt expensive. Esther walked slowly, not knowing where to go. Her feet squeaked against the floor. People passed her, men in fine suits, women in high heels, but nobody greeted her. She gripped her bag tighter. Behind a long counter stood a young man in glasses and a green uniform. His smile looked painted on. Esther swallowed and stepped forward. Please. I was told to come, she whispered. Room 604. The man blinked. His smile flickered. Then, without asking more, he pressed a button. A soft ding followed. A tall woman in a neat black suit appeared. She had a gold name badge that said blessing. Her hair was in a neat bun. Her eyes were unreadable. You are Esther? She asked, voice like rain on glass. Esther nodded. Follow me. No, welcome. No, how are you? Just footsteps and cold floors. They passed long corridors with mirrors on the walls. In each mirror, Esther saw herself, small, unsure, out of place. She whispered a prayer. God, protect me. Don't let this be a trap. They reached a silver elevator. The doors opened. Inside, music played softly. A man's voice sang, Nothing is hidden under the sun. Blessing pressed the number 6. Esther counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Ding. They stepped out onto a hallway with soft carpet and golden lights. Room doors stretched on both sides, numbered in clean silver. Finally, room 604. Blessing stopped. She turned to Esther and said, He said to tell you, kindness opens doors. Then she walked away. Esther stared at the door. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle. It opened by itself. Inside was silence. The room looked like something from a magazine. White bed sheets, shiny wood floor, curtains that danced with air from an invisible AC. But no one was there. No Papa J. No wheelchair. No sound. Hello, she called softly. No answer. Then suddenly, click, a TV on the wall turned on by itself. Esther gasped. The screen showed her. She was standing behind her food stall, laughing. It was an old video, maybe weeks ago. The screen showed her scooping porridge for a child. Then it showed her helping Papa J fix his wheel. It showed her placing extra plantains in his plate when she thought no one was watching. Esther backed away. More clips played. Her giving food to a beggar with one leg. Her sharing her water with a thirsty woman. Her smiling even when her eyes were tired. Then the screen went black. A new message appeared in white letters. You gave when you had nothing. That is true wealth. Esther stood frozen. Her heart pounded like a drum. Suddenly, the wardrobe beside the bed creaked open. She turned fast. Inside it was not clothes, but a wooden box. Neatly carved. Her name was written on the lid, Esther. Nothing else. She stepped forward and lifted the lid. Inside was another letter. She pulled it out, unfolded it slowly. Esther, you have come far. Now you must go farther. Your next step waits behind the kitchen door. Look for the light, and walk through. She stared. The kitchen door. Esther looked around the room again. Carefully, she found the small kitchenette. White counters. A fridge that hummed. A clean microwave. But behind the fridge was a half-hidden wooden door, like something forgotten. She pushed it open. Behind it was a narrow staircase going down. Light glowed at the bottom, soft and golden. She hesitated, then whispered, "For Papa J," and stepped down. Each step creaked softly. The light grew brighter. The air smelled faintly of something sweet, like fresh bread and vanilla. Then, at the final step, she saw it. A long hallway. Clean. Empty. Silent. She followed the light. At the end, another door. Black, polished, with a gold handle. She touched it gently. It swung open. Inside was a wide hall. Candles flickered along the walls. At the center stood a round table with a covered tray. And beside it, finally, stood Papa J. But not the Papa J she remembered. His wheelchair was gone. He wore a clean white kaftan and brown leather slippers. His back was straight. His eyes were bright. He was smiling, not the quiet, sad smile from before, but a full, warm one that filled the room. Esther's legs froze. Her lips moved, but no sound came. He stepped forward. His voice was strong. "Esther, thank you for coming." She gasped. "Papa!" "No," he said softly. "My name is Chief George Adebayo Olaya, but you knew me as Papa J, and that's all that matters." Her hands trembled. You're not crippled?" "No, my child. I never was." Tears sprang to her eyes. "Then why the wheelchair? The rags? The streets?" He nodded slowly. "Because every year I leave my riches behind and go where no one sees me as a chief. I become a nobody, a beggar, a shadow, and I watch." "Watch what?" Esther whispered. "Watch who is truly kind," he said, stepping closer. "Who gives not because they must, but because they choose to. Who sees the beggar, not just the boss. And this year, I saw you." Esther sat down suddenly. Her legs couldn't hold her. Chief George walked over, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You fed me when your own bowl was nearly empty. You gave me dignity when others gave me pity. You smiled every day, even when the world gave you none. You passed the test, Esther. And now—" He walked over to the tray on the table, lifted the lid. Underneath were 2 golden keys. One opens a door in this hotel. The other opens your future. Esther stared. Chief George smiled. "I built a place with your name on it. You don't have to sell food under a tree anymore. Now you own the kitchen." He paused. "You own Esther's place." Esther sat still in the candlelit room, unable to speak. The tray with the golden keys sat before her like a dream she hadn't earned. Chief George, once Papa J, the quiet beggar in the squeaky wheelchair, stood like a statue in white kaftan. There was something peaceful about him now. Strong. Soft. Wise. "You're joking," Esther whispered at last, her voice thin like thread. "No," Chief George said gently. "I never joke about kindness." Esther looked at the keys again. How did you build a place for me?" she asked, her hand still shaking. "You were in a wheelchair yesterday." He smiled. "I was in a wheelchair for months. Years, even. Because some lessons need time. Some people only show their true face when they think you are beneath them." He stepped closer and looked into her eyes. "But you saw me when I was invisible to the world." Esther's heart beat fast. Her thoughts tangled. Is this a trick? A movie? Am I dreaming in my small room in Mushin? She reached out and touched the edge of the table. It was real. She opened her mouth to speak again, But Chief George lifted a hand. "Before you ask more questions," he said softly, "let me show you something." He turned and walked to the wall behind the table. He pressed something hidden in the wood. A quiet click sounded. A panel opened slowly, revealing a small silver elevator with golden light inside. Esther stared. "Come," he said. "It's time you saw your reward." They stepped inside. The elevator hummed. Music played again, the same slow tune she heard earlier, but this time it made her skin tingle. Not with fear, but with something close to hope. They didn't go up. They went down. As the elevator dropped, Chief George spoke. "You are not the first to pass my test. Every few years, I meet someone who gives without asking, who loves without pretending. I find them and I raise them." Esther looked at him. "Why me?" He smiled, but didn't answer. The doors opened. What Esther saw next nearly broke her. It was a long underground garage, quiet, clean, brightly lit. And in the middle of it sat a van. But not just any van. It was painted in bright colors, red, orange, yellow. Fire patterns. On the side, in shining letters, it read, "Esther's food, love. Hot meals, warm hearts." Her knees almost gave way. Chief George held her steady. "I started this," he said softly, "but now it's yours." She covered her mouth. Her chest rose and fell quickly. He continued, "That van feeds hundreds in the city. Free. Every Saturday, it drives to 5 locations. It's run by paid workers. No sponsors. No strings. Just food. Just love." Esther's eyes brimmed with tears. You named it after me? You named yourself," he said. "With every act of kindness, you signed your name on the world." Esther leaned on the van, too overwhelmed to speak. After a moment, he reached into his kaftan and pulled out something small, a red cap. It was soft, worn, familiar. "You remember this?" he asked, handing it to her. Esther nodded. "That's the cap you always wore." He turned it inside out. Inside was a hidden pocket. He pulled out a folded note. "This," he said, "is the letter you were never meant to find. But you earned it." He handed it to her. Esther unfolded the paper slowly. Her hands were steady now, stronger. "To the one who gives when no one is watching. If this letter finds you, it means you have passed. The city will change because of you. The people will eat because of you. But remember, with new doors come new shadows. Be wise. Be firm. Be kind still. Chief G." Esther closed her eyes. Everything felt like rain had washed away a long drought. Inside her heart, something bloomed. Not pride, not fear, but peace. "Come," Chief George said. "There's one more place." They left the garage and entered another quiet hallway. At the end was a white double door with a sign, "Esther's Place, grand opening tomorrow." Esther gasped. He opened the doors for her. She stepped in, and her breath caught in her throat. It was not just a kitchen. It was a kingdom. Shining marble floors, long wooden counters, silver stoves, warm lights, tables set with orange napkins and plates that glowed. On the far wall was a gold frame. Inside it, a photo of Esther laughing behind her old food stall. Above it, the words, "The heart that fed the city." Esther stood frozen. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Chief George nodded. "Say nothing. Just promise me something." She turned to him, eyes wide. "When this place opens, don't stop being you." She nodded, slowly, then faster. "I won't." The next day, the papers talked about a new restaurant opening in the city. "Esther's Place opens with a story of kindness," the headline read. But the newspapers didn't know the full story. The cooks wore fresh uniforms. The waiter smiled. People came from far and near. Even some from her old street arrived, confused and amazed. The pepper seller stood at the door, blinking. "That's Esther? Our Esther." The Okada rider scratched his head. "How did she?" A boy who used to beg at her stall whispered, "She's a queen now." Inside, Esther walked through the place like a dream. But she didn't sit in the office upstairs. She stood by the kitchen, greeting every worker. She still said, "Good morning, my brother. My sister." She still smiled with her full face. By noon, her office phone rang. It was Chief George. He simply said, "You've started a fire. Let it burn with kindness." That night, alone in her new office, Esther sat at her desk. On the table was a bank card with her name, the key to a company car, a fresh phone, and beside them, the red cap. She picked it up, and she cried, but not sad tears, tears of memory, tears of thanks. Then she wore it. For the first time, she stood by the window, looking out over the sleeping city. Below, cars honked. Children laughed. Somewhere far off, someone sang. Esther whispered to the wind, "I'll keep the fire burning, Papa J." And the city, full of echoes and secrets, whispered back. The city of Lagos blinked when Esther's place opened. It blinked twice. Then it stared, because no one expected a girl from a food shack to own something so grand. She was on Instagram. She was on blogs. She was on the lips of rich women in salons and poor women in the market. They said, she must have a rich boyfriend. They said, she used jazz. They said, that girl? She used to sell porridge under that almond tree. But no one said the truth, because they didn't know it. The truth was simple. Kindness built it. But Lagos doesn't always trust simplicity. Esther wore her red cap every day now. Not the dusty one Papa J used to wear, but a new one. Bright. Clean. She wore it as a sign. A reminder. A shield. She sat in the office upstairs, behind a desk with her name on a gold plate. But she still climbed down every day, walked the kitchen, tasted the stew, smiled at workers. She paid them more than the average. She called them family. She even hired 2 boys who used to shine shoes. Now they clean the floor tiles with pride. But not everyone was happy. Her success made someone bitter. Mr. Jonah, her old landlord, saw her photo on a newspaper someone left on a kiki seat. He nearly bit his tongue. Esther! That small girl who owed me rent. He crumpled the paper. Elsewhere, the pepper seller from her old street told customers, "Me, I trained that girl. She copied my recipes." And in high places, even some restaurant owners raised eyebrows. One said, "This Esther girl, her place is stealing all our customers. Who gave her capital? Which godfather is behind her?" A tall woman in red heels came into Esther's place one day. She didn't eat. She just looked, tapped her long nails on the glass door, left without a word. Later, someone sent Esther a note without a name. "Don't fly too close to the sun. People are watching." Esther held the note for a long time. Then she burned it. She was no stranger to fear. But she was tired of being afraid. With success came stress. One Friday morning, a new chef served jollof rice that had too much time. A customer complained online. It trended. Esther's place falling off. Esther's staff looked worried. "Madam, should we reply?" Esther shook her head. "No. Fix the rice. Not the internet." They fixed the rice. The customers returned. But small cracks started to show. Her phone rang more often. People asking for favors. People asking for money. Fake cousins. Long-lost uncles. Everyone needed help. "Madam Esther, remember me from school?" "Madam, I know your story. Please, just 200K to start business." She tried to help. At first. But the calls never stopped. She cried one night, face down on her desk. She whispered, "Why does kindness attract so many hungry mouths?" Then a soft voice answered, "You must learn how to give without losing yourself." She looked up. No one was there. But somehow, she knew who had said it. One Tuesday afternoon, her manager rushed into the office. "Madam," he said, "you need to come downstairs. Now." Esther followed him. The moment she stepped into the lobby, everything stopped. Because standing at the door was Papa J, in a wheelchair. The real Papa J. Old. Thin. His eyes filled with tears. He was not Chief George. He was not rich. He was just a tired man, rolled in by 2 children. "Esther," he whispered. She ran to him. "My God," she said, kneeling. "Papa J, where have you been?" The old man coughed. "They told me you were feeding people. I wanted to see for myself." She hugged him gently. "You'll eat first today," she said. "Like always." That night, she served him herself. And something in her heart softened again. Fame had been loud, but kindness spoke quietly, and she needed to hear it. That Sunday, just before midnight, Chief George arrived. He wore his white kaftan. His smile had not changed, but his eyes were serious. "May I sit?" he asked. Esther nodded. They sat on the rooftop balcony, overlooking the glowing lights of the city. "You've done well," he said. She smiled faintly. "But," he chuckled. "There's always a but when the fire starts to spread." She sighed. "People talk. Some lie. Some ask for what I can't give. I'm tired." He looked at her. "Do you remember what I told you? That new doors bring shadows." She nodded. "Well," he said, "you must learn how to walk in sunlight and still cast no shadow." She frowned. "How?" "By staying true," he said. "Give from your spirit, not your guilt. Lead with wisdom, not fear. You are not a charity. You are a woman with a calling." They sat in silence for a while. Then he handed her a small envelope. She opened it. Inside was a single sentence. "You have opened one door. Now prepare to open the city." The next morning, Esther called a staff meeting. She stood in the middle of the kitchen in her red cap and apron. She held the letter. She said, "From now on, every Friday our truck will go to 5 more locations. We will feed 5 more communities." People gasped. "But madam," her finance officer said, "that will cost—" Esther raised a hand. "We will adjust. We will trust." Then she smiled. "Kindness is not free," she said, "but neither is it small." Later that week, the food truck arrived in Makoko, a flooded area where wooden houses floated on water and children ran barefoot on shaky planks. A small girl with big eyes stood in the line. She held a tin plate. Her dress was torn, but her hair was neatly plaited. When Esther handed her a meal, the girl looked up and whispered, "Why do you feed us?" Esther knelt and smiled. "Because someone fed me when I had nothing. And now it's my turn." The girl stared at her for a long time, then said quietly, "One day, I'll feed people too." Lagos never sleeps, but some nights it watches. And on one special Friday night, it watched Esther's food-love trucks drive through its roughest corners like moving stars. From Oshodi to Ajij, from Makoko to Ijora, from the muddy feet of slum kids to the weary eyes of market widows. Esther stood inside one of the trucks, red cap on her head, apron tied tightly, scooping rice and pepper stew into trays. Beside her, volunteers laughed. Music played on a Bluetooth speaker. The night air smelled of time and promise. "You day try, madam," one boy said, watching her work. She smiled. "We day try together." Then the crack came. Bang! Someone outside kicked the truck. Esther froze. Shouting followed. Then more banging. Then glass. A mob was gathering. It started small. A man shouted, "Why do they only bring one truck?" Another yelled, "They fed Makoko last week." "What about us?" People pushed forward. The truck doors shook. Screams filled the air. Esther's eyes widened. "Close the hatch," she cried. But it was too late. Angry hands yanked open the serving window. Trays spilled. Rice flew. A hot spoon burned someone's arm. Fists hit the side of the truck. A man tried to climb in. "Esther," a volunteer shouted, "we have to leave." "No," she said, voice breaking. "We're supposed to help." "Then help us survive," someone screamed. The driver started the engine. The truck rolled forward. People chased. Some threw stones. Inside, Esther fell to the floor. Her heart pounded. Her red cap was gone. They drove all night. The team stayed quiet. They parked behind the gates of the main kitchen. Security guards locked the gates. Esther walked inside alone, tears streaking her face. She went upstairs, into her office, and locked the door. Then she screamed. Loud. Long. Raw. She hit the table. Knocked over a chair. Slid to the floor. Her chest heaved. Her breath came in bursts. How did it come to this? No one answered. Until someone knocked. She didn't want to open. But the knock came again. She stood slowly, wiped her face, and cracked the door. It was Chief George. He didn't speak. He simply stepped inside, sat on the floor beside her, and said, "You saw what I've seen. Now you understand what the city really is." Esther looked at him, pain in her eyes. "They broke the truck. I wanted to help. They wanted to fight." "They were not fighting you," he said. "They were fighting pain." She swallowed. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." He nodded. "That's the moment most people stop. That's when they sell their heart and wear gold instead." "I don't want to sell my heart," she whispered. "Then keep walking," he said. "But not alone. The next morning, Esther called an emergency staff meeting. She stood in the kitchen, face bare, cap gone. "This city is hungry," she said. "Not just for food, but for dignity." She pointed at a whiteboard. On it were new routes, new colors. "We're not just feeding them," she said. "We're talking to them, listening, hiring, partnering." She turned around. "We will create food stations in the communities, not just drive-by drops. We'll train the people there to run it. Let them feed their own." The room fell silent. Then claps broke out. Volunteers cheered. Some cried. The fire was back. Not flashy, but stronger. 2 months passed. New food stations popped up like hope. One in Ojota, one in Surulere, one near Third Mainland Bridge. People lined up, but now with order, with dignity, with pride. They didn't just receive food. They served it, too. And one Saturday morning, as Esther walked into a station, something strange happened. The people clapped, then sang. A little boy stepped forward, holding something in his hand. It was a new red cap. He gave it to her. "Because you never stop feeding us," he said. Esther put it on slowly, tears in her eyes. That photo, the moment the cap touched her head, went viral. "Queen of Kindness," the caption said. But she didn't want to be a queen. She just wanted no one to go to bed hungry. One day, a man in a suit visited her kitchen. He claimed to be from a powerful group, people who liked what she was doing. He offered funding, fame, bigger trucks, a TV show. "But," he said, "you'll have to drop your name, and we'll need to approve every message you send out. You know, to protect your image." Esther looked at him long and hard, then said just one word. "No." He looked shocked. "Excuse me. I didn't start this for your approval," she said calmly. "I started it because someone once gave me food without asking for anything back." She stood up. "Tell your group, this heart is not for sale." The man left. She smiled. Chief George would have been proud. One quiet evening, Esther walked back to the street where it all started. She stood under the almond tree. Her old stall was gone, replaced by a bus stop sign. But the memory still lived. She placed a small plate of yam porridge on the ground. Next to it, 2 golden plantains. A tribute to the beginning, to the journey, to Papa J. And as the sun dipped behind the roofs of Lagos, she whispered, "I didn't forget. I never will." A new folktale was born in the city. Children whispered it to each other. She fed a beggar and became a queen. Her food had magic. It healed hearts. She wore a red cap that never fell off, not even in storms. And when people asked Esther the secret to her rise, she always said the same thing. "Kindness brought me here, so I must send kindness out again. Because in this city, full of dust and gold, the one who gives from the heart is the one who never truly loses,